On to the first story, kicked out because I listened to the school nurse instead of her. I've mentioned my mom in past posts a lot, but I've never really shared any stories about her. My therapist recommends I telling about what she did to people who don't know as a way to validate it because of my father and her gaslit me about it for years. So my mom was an abusive drunk, momby, got mad at any little thing I did or didn't do. And either verbally abused or worst case, physically abused me, then hours after would love the bomb, and this would happen almost every day. Some days it ended in just a spat, and others it got bad where I had to leave to spend hours in my car at a parking lot till my dad got home. And she was very entitled. Like I'm the mother, I am God, I'm gonna yell at my husband because he didn't give me money to get my nails done kind of entitled. I have numerous stories, but this is the one I remembered first and I think is one of the best examples of what she would do. Mom God complex. This happened when I was a sophomore in high school. My throat was starting to get rough, and I went to the nurse's office for some advice, and she said to gargle warm salt water for feminists 10 times, at least 3 times a day. The temperature is important. I've heard this from my friends too, so I figured it must work. It did. So when I got home, I said hi to my mom, who was in her room, and went to the kitchen to fill a glass of water. I debated whether I should just get some out of the sink since it's fast warm water and I'm not drinking it anyway, so I asked my mom if it was a good idea. I remember the general outline vividly, but not the details as this happened a long time ago. Me, guess who am entitled momby. Me, hey, should I just use the water from the tap or from the fridge? You know uses the fridge. Why do you ask? Me, oh, my throat is scratchy and my voice is going, so everybody recommends gargling warm salt water to help. What? No, you gargle cold water. Me, I was told warm water. Sweetie, I've been taking of your sore throats since you were born. I think I know better. Me, well yes, but can I at least try the warm at least? It wouldn't hurt. No use of cold water. Cold water is better. I know better. Me, okay, but everyone's suggesting warm, so I want to try that at least, please. She visibly starts getting upset and walks towards me, a little voice rising. I can clearly see at that point she was drunk, so I started getting scared. Opus, I am your mother and I know what's best for my child. You're seriously gonna believe your friends over your own mother? Me, well, the nurse said it to, but okay fine, I'll use cold. No, I can't believe you'd believe other people over me. When I was the one who raised you, I was the one changing your diapers. She starts going on one of her tirades where she just rants and rages into the air regardless if you're saying anything or not. Her voice was getting louder and louder till she was practically screaming. I'm trying to tell her I'll take it cold, but she's long past the point of rational thought and doesn't even register what I'm saying. I tell her I'm done talking and try to walk away, but she then proceeds to grab my hair and rip me toward the door and shove me through. Screaming, how dare I treat her like this and disrespect her, and I need to cool down. He slams the door. It's 5:30 p.m., 93 degrees, in August, in Florida, and I get stuck out there with nowhere to go for at least 3 hours. Can't call dad or friends cause my phone was in my backpack in the house. And we live in a rural community, so not anyone close by. When those 3 hours were up, she thrusts open the door, rants about how crazy I was for sitting there, and then bitches and wonders why I'm giving her the silent treatment like what transpired didn't happen. I have many more stories if anyone's interested, but that was the first one I remembered. Now to the second story. My mom is calling me selfish and lazy because I won't force my daughter to dance. This is going to be a long one, with tons of backstory, sorry. The TLDR is basically the title. My daughter started dance 2 years ago, when she was 3. My mom and sister got in her head while on a sleepover about being a ballerina. How my niece does dance, and how adorable she would look in pretty dresses. My daughter loves dresses and my niece, so she agreed to do it, without my consent. When I found out, my daughter seemed so excited, so I gave in. The dance school does classes for jazz, ballet, and tap for the little kids, and she really wanted to do ballet, so I signed her up. The instructor looked at me and said if I want her to do ballet, she has to do jazz too. Whatever, she could wear her ballet shoes for jazz, so it's not like I had to get a whole other outfit. 3 weeks in and she hates jazz, loves ballet. But when it's time for jazz, she starts crying and wants to go home. I tried to pull her out of jazz and only do ballet, but was again told she can't do just ballet, so she either needs to suck it up or quit completely. She was 3. My mom somehow convinced her to continue dancing while on yet another sleepover, and everything was fine until it came time for the mid-year concert. She saw her pretty dresses and was ecstatic until it was time for hair and makeup. She kicked up a huge fuss about it, but was fine when we finally got home after 6 hours and I was able to wash that shit off. This all happened again at the end of the year, where she got a trophy for perfect attendance. 2020 was similar with dance lessons, going to Zoom in March. Although around Mayish she said she didn't want to do dance anymore. She hated being told what to do, wanted to make up her own dances instead. Typical for Yo stuff. I told her if she could make it to the mid-year concert, she could quit after just so they wouldn't have to rearrange the dancers so close to concert time, which she agreed to. She was super happy leading up to the concert because she knew she wouldn't be back. However, on yet another sleepover with the nanny, she was again convinced to continue so she could get her trophy at the end of the year. She had a somewhat miserable July, November, still saying how she didn't want to do it but wanted the nanny to be happy and see her get her trophy. Every week my daughter complained about going, and my mom believed that I was putting it in my daughter's head that dance was horrible and that I didn't want to take her. Couldn't afford it. Blaming me for my daughter not wanting to do something. In front of my mom, I point blank asked my daughter if she really wanted to do dance and she said no. She didn't like it, she wants to do her own thing. Etc. Apparently, that wasn't good enough. End of year concert comes around and again she is excited to be done with it all. I tell the instructors not to reserve a spot for my daughter for next year times 2021 since she won't be back, and they were a little pissed, but whatever. The concert is over, trophies handed out, time to head home. Sweet, no more dance. I messaged the instructor in January reminding her not to save us a spot. She wrote back, but she is already signed up for the year. Your mother told me last year you wanted her to keep dancing. Nope, don't save us a spot, she's not coming. I then called my mom. Me, why did you sign your daughter up for dance without talking to me first? We have already talked about this, she doesn't want to go. Mom, nonsense, she's 5, she doesn't know what she wants. Besides, she looks so adorable in those cute costumes and makeup. Me, she doesn't want to go. She has been complaining about it for the last 8 months. The only reason she finished the year was to make you happy. Mom, you're just saying that because you can't be bothered getting off your lazy ass to take her. Every girl wants to be a ballerina. Why are you trying to take this away from her? You're being selfish. Me, she doesn't want to go and I'm not going to force her. I've already let the instructor know she is not going back and to not sign her up without my permission next time if she ever decides to start dancing again. She continued to berate me a while longer before I finally hung up on her. She then called my sister who tried guilt-tripping me into forcing my daughter to dance. It's not going to happen until she wants to. I'll still take her to the concerts to see niece perform. But that's it. Sorry, this is so long. Now on to the third. EK and her kids at Infinity War. Background: this happened back in 2018, so some of the details are a bit fuzzy. My brother, my dad, and I are huge Marvel fans. We've seen every movie within the opening week. Infinity War was the big movie everyone wanted to see and getting tickets was hard. My dad scored them the day they went live, but they didn't have assigned seating, so it was first come first serve. That day was bring your child to work day, and I left early to go get seats. The movie didn't start until 6, but they had the theater open as early as 3 p.m. We decided to get to the theater at around 3:30. There were other people there, just a group of 5 in the top row. We sat next to them and had a small conversation. We decided to eat before the movie started at around 4. People started crowding into the theater. More seats are filled in and this woman and her kids in Marvel costumes show up. We hear her asking people to move so her kids could sit. I could barely hear it. Excuse me? RP, can I help you? Yes, you need to move, my kids have been waiting for this movie and want to sit at the top. RP, I'm sorry, I've been here since for saving this seat. Fine. She ended up asking the same thing to everyone else in the top row. Then she came over to us. My brother and dad were in the bathroom and left their jackets to save the seats. I see her taking my dad's jacket and I tell her that I'm saving those seats. Well, if they're not here you can't save them. Me, they're in the bathroom and we've been waiting here. Well, that's too bad. She sits down and her kids start screaming. EK, mommy, I want popcorn. I had popcorn as it was part of the meal I had. I was saving up for the movie. The M tries to reach over me to grab my popcorn, and I slap her hand to get it out and she starts screaming. She screams assault. Security tells her to calm down and she demands free movie tickets. When she goes down to talk to the manager, my brother and my dad come back to their seats. By the time she comes back, the previews were playing. Why are you in my seats? Dad, these are the seats we've been waiting for since 3. We were here before you. In fact, gets cut off. The guy who was here before we cut her off. Gee, he was here after us at 3:30. You can check the security camera. That won't be necessary. The manager who was hearing the commotion checked the camera and saw that we were there. The lady was kicked out and was given seats for the next showing. When the movie lets out, I see her red and her kids were crying. I walk up to her and spoil the movie for her. I waved her goodbye and walked out of the theater. And to the last one, doesn't like me having money but expects me to buy everything myself. My times 21F stepmom is a horrible, entitled person. I still currently live with her and my dad and have since I was 9 years old. Ever since I was a child she came into my life. When I was 4 or 5 she has treated me like garbage, especially in comparison to her own children. My brother, technically stepbrother, is 1 year older than me and she has always treated him better than me. I don't resent him for it. He and I have always gotten along, especially with our mutual hatred for his mother. There was a lot of physical abuse when I was little, but it evolved into mental, emotional abuse as I got older. She's never liked the idea of me having things, especially money. My stepmom is horrible with her money. She gets a paycheck and immediately goes shopping and blows all of her money on ugly home decor. At one point, when she didn't have a job for a year and we were struggling, she would spend my dad's money on things and donate hundreds of dollars to her church when we couldn't afford it. As a kid, occasionally my family would give me money for holidays or as little gifts throughout the year. My dad would usually slip me $20 when I would go to hang out with friends so I could afford food and admission to places. My stepmom did not like this and would get angry every time I got money. My dad and I have been sneaking and giving me money for years because she would freak if she found out. My grandma would give me the money a few times a year. My stepmom would often go through my entire room, including my wallet, and she would get mad at me when she found money. She loved to go through my room to throw away things, especially keepsakes, and find things to rage about. When she would go through my wallet, she often stole money from it. She also often took half the coins I would collect in my piggy bank on several occasions. Once my grandma gave me $30 as a gift after spending a day with her. My grandma gave both me and my brother money on holidays, but she didn't give him money as often as me because he has his mom and dad's family that gives him money and not me. Also, my grandma saw me more often since my brother lived at his dad's house most of the time. This makes sense to me. I and my brother are both okay with this. My brother has always been okay with the amounts of money we get separated from our families. My stepmom decided this wasn't okay though, and found the $30 and demanded I owed half of it to my brother. My brother didn't want me to give him the money. He told his mom it wasn't fair to take it from me, but she forced me to give it to him in front of her. I honestly believe she used to steal my money to give to him. I tried telling my dad about her stealing my money, but I don't think he ever fully believed me, so I just dealt with always having less money than I thought. This sucked as I have always been pretty good at saving. Before I figured out she was stealing from me, I thought I was going crazy because I always had less money than I thought. When I confronted my stepmom about going through my things, she would deny it. She even told my dad she never even went into my room except to empty my laundry basket. This was definitely not true, as my things were always rearranged or completely missing. When I got a little older, around 15, she decided on a new way to punish me. She came to me one day with a list of chores. I already had chores, but she decided to write them down, and she had exact times and expectations for each and every chore I was supposed to do. If I didn't have chores done by a really specific time on a specific day each week, I would be punished. These times were often really early in the morning, and she knew I liked to sleep in when I could, and I was not allowed to do the chore the day before. The punishments. She decided that taking things from me, like technology, wasn't working. I only had things taken from me once or twice. So instead, if I didn't do something right, she would charge me. I would be fined for not doing a chore exactly when she wanted it done. One week, my brother used the last roll of toilet paper and didn't refill the basket of extras in our bathroom. My stepmom freaked at me for not refilling it and charged me $10. When I defended myself, she just got angrier. She charged me only a handful of times because I was typically good at doing my chores. When I complained to my dad and showed him her written paper explaining the charging process, he told me to just go along with it to make her happy. One last big incident occurred when I finally wised up and started keeping my money in a lockbox. In high school, I started getting more money as I would get larger gifts from my side of the family, and in the summer I would work with my grandma, and she would pay me at the end a couple hundred in cash. I kept all my money in my lockbox, thinking I was finally safe from her snooping and stealing. One summer day, my stepmom waited for everyone to leave the house and came to confront me about my lockbox. She demanded that I open it for her, and I refused. She began to accuse me of using it to hide drugs, which I never used, and said if I didn't open it meant that I had drugs and would be in trouble. I got scared and I stupidly opened it in front of her. She saw my maybe $400 and grabbed it and began screaming at me. She knew most of it was from my grandma, and when I tried to defend myself and say I had been saving it, she called me a selfish liar. She said I was selfish for having so much money, and I asked if I should just be spending it instead. She told me I would be selfish for spending it on myself. So basically, she was jealous I had money and wanted me to give it to her, spend it on her or my brother. She screamed at me and called me awful names for at least half an hour, and eventually had me literally cornered in my room. She grabbed some clothes off of my laundry basket and held them over her head as if she was about to throw them at me. Hit me? She turned last second and threw them forcefully on the ground next to me instead and stormed out of the room. The whole time I was sobbing and panicking. She came back to my door to yell and call me names, and I saw red. Literally, my vision went completely red, and I collapsed on the ground in a sobbing mess. I screamed with all my might for her to just leave me alone. I packed up my money in my lockbox and took off for a friend's house. My stepmom texted me and said I could stay the night with my friend. I realize now she probably did this so she could get her side of the story to my dad before I could. I hid my lockbox at my friend's house for a couple of weeks, and luckily my stepmom never came after me about it again. I stopped using it, and when I was 17 my dad finally let me open a bank account. I don't think anyone in my family completely knows about this incident. She purposefully waited to do this when no one was home so she could corner me and berate me. All this time, it hasn't been like my brother hasn't been getting money. He got money from his family and from his dad. She always bought him clothes and food and video games that he wanted. She would constantly stop to buy random things for him even when he didn't want the things. She would often even make him dinner, and not me. She bought me clothes maybe 3 times in my life. My dad would buy me clothes once a year for school. I was allowed a few pairs of pants and some shoes, and she never liked that and we had to hide it. My dad bought me a jacket once and we had to sneak it into the house. In middle school, my whole family went to the mall, and I found a nice $10 shirt that I wanted for the church since I didn't have any nice shirts. When my dad bought it for me, she got angry that I hadn't purchased it myself. I cried every time I wore that shirt because I felt so guilty. In late high school, she started to expect me to buy all my hygiene products for myself. If my dad took me with him to get groceries, and he bought me a box of pads, she would get mad at me and call me selfishly for not buying them for myself. She did this with soap and toothpaste too. She bought hygiene products for my brother all the time though. We would go to movies with extended family, and she would pay for my brothers and cousins' tickets but would expect me to buy my own. Once I had a gift card for the movie theater, and she forced me to use it on her ticket even though I was saving it to use with friends. At this point, I buy everything for myself. I'm tired of her complaining. I also can't walk into the house with bags from shopping even if I bought food or hygiene products because she will get angry at me. She gets mad when I get gifts from people too. I hide everything. I keep all of my money in my bank account. I don't let her ever see me get anything new. Recently she asked me if I needed anything from the store, and I told her no. She told me, "You know we're your parents, we can buy you things you need like toothpaste," and I laughed and told her no. I would do it myself. Because of this and God, so many other horrible things she's done and said, I absolutely hate her. She acted so surprisingly when she found out I was depressed, and even more surprised when I said I wanted to move out. She would say, "I don't know why you are so depressed, and I don't know why you would want to leave. I've always kind of been just a kid to push off chores onto, as I was always expected to clean." She would especially expect me to clean up after my siblings all the time. TLD, our stepmom is bad with money management and has berated me and called me selfish my whole life for having money. Getting gifts because she thinks it's unfair to her and my brother. She's refused to buy me basic things that parents should buy for their children but spoils my brother even when he would ask her not to.